Hey everyone, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the Wicked Cushions freeze pad for the Audeze Maxwell. Something that I've been asked about a lot more than I anticipated, to be honest, because I didn't think the stock pads were terrible, but obviously there's been demand for this. So I'm going to talk about everything there is with the freeze pad, hopefully help you make your decision. Now I will have chapters in the video because I'm also releasing a batch of FPS focused EQ presets for the Maxwell that apply towards the Wicked Cushions freeze pad and the stock pad. So I'll be talking about that, and that includes games like Warzone, Valorant, Apex, and Fortnite. And then at the end of this video, I will also be talking about software and firmware updates since launch because there's been a couple changes that I just want to highlight. So with that being said, let's dive in. Now the freeze pad at the time of this review is available in 4 colors. You have this 90s black that you see on my Maxwell, you have the stock black, then you also have a Geo gray and a red camo. The all-black version is $29.95 at the time of this review, again at launch, and then the retail price of all the other designs, if you want a different finish, those are $31.95, so they're pretty comparable. I will have links in the description below to help you find all of them. Now before I get into the review portion of the video, I want to talk about some housekeeping bits first because some people may tune out later. Freeze pads, they have a higher thermal mass. There's a gel inside that can retain a temperature for a while. That's why it takes longer to warm them up in the first place when you're wearing them. However, because of that, if this is coming from a hot warehouse or delivery truck or it's sitting out on your porch in the sun for a while and you get all excited, you open these up and throw them on your headset, yeah, they're going to be a little bit warm for a while. Give them some time to cool off, let them sit on your desk, throw them in the fridge because you can do that because of this gel, it's super cool. But don't just put them on and assume that, hey, these pads are hotter than my old ones. Give them time to quote unquote thaw, I guess, or at least come to temperature. Now Wicked Cushions is also coming out with custom head straps soon. That little headband piece, this leatherette strap, is going to be replaceable. It's coming out in roughly 2 months from now. No idea on the price yet, but it'll be at the end of July, early August, and those will match whatever pad you bought. So they should have at minimum at the time of release the same 4 finishes that you can get now. So no idea on the cost, but if you want to bedazzle your headset a little bit further and have it all match, you'll be able to do that. Lastly, to help you find these, I will have links in my description below. Now, one link will take you to the Wicked Cushions website where you'll save, you get like a custom coupon created by clicking that. That will save you 15% off whatever you buy on their store. And then on Amazon, I'll also have a discount code to save you 15% off the pads. So don't pay full price for these if you're buying through mine. Don't feel pressured to buy through me. Buy it however you want. I don't do these videos to monetize anything. I just want to help. The last thing I want to mention is these pads are available in the US only at launch. They will come out in Canada, EU, UK, and Australia on roughly June 10th. So I will have links in the description below to help you find it in those markets. They may not work or become available for a couple weeks, but at least those will work once it does go live. And again, it'll help you find it a little bit easier. Now, one more housekeeping note that doesn't really have to do with the rest of my video, but I've been seeing people do this online and I'm trying to prevent you from damaging your headset. You do not need an upgraded amp and or DAC to improve the performance of your Maxwell. Please do not buy a higher powered amp DAC and connect with an analog cable to this to quote unquote improve the sound quality and neutrality or whatever people think they're doing. This has an onboard DAC and amplifier. It is an amplified active headset. It's not passive, meaning if you send it all this power from an external amp, you're sending that into a DSP, a DAC, that is then getting sent to the amp inside to further amplify it. You will damage your headset, and frankly, it sounds like crap if you try to go through and jam it with all this extra power. You are going to add a lot of signal distortion. You're putting something else in the signal path that doesn't need to be there, especially because this works as a USB headset and the wireless mode sounds incredible. So please, save your money. Don't buy all that extra stuff. Just use it as intended out of the box. So finally, let's talk about the pads, and the dimensions will be the good starting point, and that includes weight. So the stock dimensions of the old pad is 22.5 millimeters thick on the front side and 30 millimeters thick on the back. The freeze pad steps up to 27 millimeters up front and 37 millimeters in the back, so this is a pretty substantial increase in pad thickness from the stock pad. Now the ear opening is the same on both pads, so the freeze pad is no taller or wider. It's 65 millimeters tall from pad to pad, and then the width is 47 millimeters on both pads. I don't think this is a big deal. This is actually a pretty good size opening. It's not the largest pad out there, but it's close, and because of that extra depth, this is going to fit most ears very comfortably. Now this little fleece that you see here, or the acoustic fabric, if you will, That's just a driver baffle cover, but it's not padded. So the thickness that I mentioned earlier as far as pad depth goes, that's basically the inner thickness as well for the pad depth. So if you're concerned with if you have larger ears, that's a pretty substantial pad depth, so you shouldn't have any issues touching the driver baffle either. Now the Wicked Cushions freeze pads have a higher thermal mass, which is a good and bad thing depending on how you look at it. One of the pros is that it takes longer to heat up. So in theory, if you're having a long gaming session, these don't get hot as fast as the stock pad. It's also aided by the fact that they're using this sport fabric here on the top, which helps breathe a little bit extra because you're not having like that plastic bag type feel, that leatherette feel against your ear. Sport fabric just breathes a little bit better. One of the downsides of having a higher thermal mass is technically it takes a little bit longer to cool down. Again, it's aided by this fabric, so it's not a big deal. But on the Maxwell, there is one downside to thermal mass. Mass meaning weight. It weighs more. And we all know the Maxwell is heavy. So I just want to show you, just to put this into perspective, the stock pads I have weighing in at 42 grams right now. Now if I switch to the freeze pads are thicker and dense. That is 98 to 100 grams. I guess it's 99 grams if it's balancing between the two. That means the stock weight Maxwell, which I believe is close to 510 grams, is now going to be significantly heavier. So let's put this on. And I am at 568 grams. That is a tank of a headset. This is the equivalent of having like 4 extra people in your Cadillac Escalade. It's already heavy. You're just making it heavier. Some people may not notice this. Some people will. It's just the nature of going with a thicker pad. There's really no way around it. So I do want to point that out. Now, if you're concerned with how difficult it is to pad swap, the Maxwell is one of the easiest pad swap systems out there. Astro has the magnetic pads, which is the easiest, followed by this. All you have to do is twist it off. It is a piece of cake. And you can see here how well that stock or that Wicked Cushions freeze pad comes on and off. And that's it. I'm back to the stock pad. Again, just pop it off and I'm good to go. It's super fast. The fitment on the freeze pad is excellent. I didn't have any issues where like the gasket was too thick, that little seal, and it was really hard to twist. It fits exactly like a stock pad does. Now, because I like doing sciencey stuff, I just want to show you my pad compression test, because you always want to make sure that they have similar properties. So when you're wearing it, if they shrink, you don't want it to shrink inwards and put extra pressure on your ear. Here's the stock pad. You can see it's pretty symmetrical. This is a good pad. The stock Maxwell pads are great. And the freeze pad, they have the same characteristics. So you don't have to worry about the pad shrinking up on you when you wear them. Now, just to wrap up the whole comfort and my real world experience, yes, I did feel the weight. I've been playing with the Maxwell quite a bit because I've been working on custom EQs, and I could tell when I switched to these. Now, there are pros to this I'll get into in a second here, but there's no denying that this is already a heavy headset, and when you add a little bit more weight to it, it is something you're going to have to get used to. I have been used to it, so it didn't bother me too much, but I don't want to lie and tell you you won't feel a difference, because it is quite heavy. Now, there are trade-offs, of course, because yes, you're gaining weight, but to me, the comfort improvement was what helped my Maxwell experience. It's like, yes, it's comfortable, but it felt better on my ear, because now I wasn't dealing with weight and a hot ear. This is noticeably cooler. The pad material breathes a little bit better, and I think because this curves slightly, you have more of the mesh or the sport fabric touching your ear, and you're not really getting any leatherette touching, which is great. I think the biggest thing I noticed is my issue with the stock pad. The only thing for me was that I didn't always have the best seal right here behind my ear. It was like it was just enough to maintain a seal. I just didn't have enough depth and pad compliance to conform around the shape of my head. So that did impact bass performance a little bit for me, because on my measuring rig, I got a great seal and it showed more deep bass, but on my ear, I didn't quite get the exact same bass performance. So this fixes that just purely from a seal and fitment standpoint. Because it's a little bit more compliant, it has more give, I got a better and more consistent seal around my ear. The last thing I want to mention is the whole passive noise isolation. These are both great, and the Maxwell's always had good passive noise isolation. So with the headset completely off, if there's noise in your background, these pads do a pretty comparable job at reducing some of that background noise. They also trap in the noise very similarly as well. So just because it has that sport fabric, don't worry about sound leaking as much. It's very, very close. Now, the best surprise I had from switching over to the freeze pad was the fact that the sound quality barely changed. And for those of you who don't know this, changing pads on the same headset or headphone is the biggest impact you can make on your headset or headphone. It is literally like taking the same speaker and moving it to a different room in your house, because the only thing that's altering how the driver is interacting with your ear is the pad. That's the room. So when you change material, you change depth, you change how far the pad is from your ear, how much absorption is in the pad material, what kind of fabric is around your ear, all of this impacts the sound. And this is kind of like one of those things where I know they didn't spend, I'm going to be realistic and honest. It's not like Wicked Cushions spent months in a lab perfecting the formula of the pad material density shape to get as close to the stock sound. They've never advertised as being an audiophile pad. They've designed their stuff to be more for comfort and style for people looking for either. So by a stroke of luck, these sound almost identical to stock. And as you can see on the frequency response charts I'm showing you, this is the benefit of me being able to measure this. They measure almost identically. You get a small lift in sub bass, which it already had great sub bass before, and you get a slight lift around 500 hertz. Some people who are extremely sensitive and have like a golden ear, they might notice that mid-range change. It could make things sound a little bit honky, but it's really minimal. And I think a lot of people, not even knowing that, will switch pads and seriously not even think anything different changed. It is that minimal. So if you've made your own custom EQs for this headset because you're in love with it and you dialed in everything, but you want to switch to the freeze pad, you can get nearly identical to stock sound without doing anything, but just drop your 32 hertz band by 2 decibels and drop your 500 hertz band by 2 decibels, and you have a nearly identical sounding headset, which is awesome. Now, to take custom EQ a step further, as of today, I'm finally releasing some custom EQ presets specifically for the Maxwell in different FPS games. Now, please treat this as a beta. I am working on something huge that's going to come out down the road, but this is the starting point of some of my work. I love playing on the Maxwell. Admittedly, it hasn't been as competitive when it comes to FPS games as some of my other headsets, but it doesn't mean I don't love the Maxwell, because from a music performance, absolutely incredible. It's one of the best, it's got to be the best wireless gaming headset I've ever heard in my life, except the FPS stuff. So treat these as a beta, and this is for what I heard and played with. So again, your ears are different, your preferences are different. Maybe start with this as a baseline and adjust from there. So with that being said, here is the Call of Duty Warzone 2 EQ preset for the Maxwell. This is different than the old beta I released. I made some changes to make it a little bit less extreme, but overall I'm pretty happy with this. Feel free to pause the screen here. I'm not going to read every single band because I'm trying to make it easier for you and save time, but that's the Warzone 2 preset. Moving on, we have the Fortnite preset, which has a pretty different frequency response, but overall shares some similarities. I just fine-tuned it for Fortnite. Then you have Apex Legends, which is another obviously very popular game. I love playing Apex. Again, different sound, and I wanted to focus on enhancing the sound effects while not making it fatiguing, make footsteps stand out, that type of thing. So that is Apex. And then lastly, we have Valorant, which again, similar sound profile, but I wanted to make a couple changes to bring everything I could out of Valorant. And after doing a lot of testing, what I do is I play the games, I record it, I loop certain scenes over and over, and then I make my custom EQs for those moments to see if one setting made it better than the other. And that's how I got to the point that I'm at now. This can obviously change over time with more experience, and then again, like I said, adjust it to your liking, but hopefully you find some of those helpful. Now I will say too, because the freeze pad measures almost identically to the stock pad, you can use these presets whether you have the freeze pad or not. I'm not trying to gatekeep and say buy the freeze pad and then do this EQ. The EQ works on both, and I think it improves the headset regardless. Now, as to be expected, Audeze has been busy releasing firmware updates for the Maxwell. There's been multiple firmware updates since I released my first video, even some of my follow-up videos when I compared it to other headsets. Some of the recent ones include improvements to the Bluetooth behavior, as well as battery life enhancements for efficiency as far as when to put things in standby and how to reconnect. They did introduce a couple new bugs. They squashed bugs, but as a result, one of the new bugs is if you're using an Android phone to play with LDAC and you're streaming wirelessly via Bluetooth, you lose the ability to use custom EQ. That's just at the time of this video. For all I know, it'll get fixed next week. So make sure that you read the change notes online. They post it on their subreddit and on the internet. But I just wanted to highlight that because you want to make sure that if there's a known bug from the update and that directly impacts how you're using it, maybe hold off on the update. Now, perhaps the biggest change and update and thing I'm excited about for the Maxwell is now the PC and Mac versions have a beta option. If you go to the Audeze HQ download website, I'll have a link in the description for that. The beta version allows you to finally do custom EQ via your computer. So you no longer have to stream a song from your mobile device via Bluetooth and change it from your mobile app. Now you can do it on the PC. It makes it so much easier. So I highly suggest stepping up into the beta app. I've been using it for a while and it's been working great. On that note, if you are doing software and firmware updates, do all of that first, then do your custom EQ. Because if you do all this work with custom EQ, then decide you're going to do a firmware update, it will reset your presets. It clears out the onboard memory of the headset every time you do a firmware update. So be sure to snap a picture of your settings that you like before you wipe it. Otherwise, you're starting over and you have no idea what you had. I found the beta version to be pretty consistent and more reliable to work with than the Bluetooth version. However, every now and then it almost like had its own refresh. And as I was adjusting bands and playing with the EQ, it would kind of like refresh itself and I would lose some of the progress I was making. It was easy enough to work around, but it's not perfect, so I expect more software updates to come out soon to address that. So that wraps up this long update video on the Maxwell. I wanted to approach this more from like an ownership perspective because a lot of people have been interested in the pads. A lot of people are trying to get the most out of the Maxwell for FPS games. And then obviously with this plethora of software updates coming out, it's important to know everything that's going on. So I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you at the next video. I've been working on a lot of content that I can't wait to share with you all. So with that being said, have a good one, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye.